I recognize that. Yeah, I know it. So, a lot of I'm the worst human being ever. Show us that they're delicious. Yeah, show us that they're delicious.
made a strategic mistake and not climbing a chair.
Oh, yeah. We should have tested the mic.
Check. 1, 3, 5.
Alrighty, folks. Thank you. Here we go. How do we turn this up?
Your attention, please. The next bus leaves in 20 minutes. Hello. Courtesy focus on this lovely gentleman up here. All right. And the next person that gets caught talking has to tell the whole class what you're talking about. All right. Take it away, Gary.
All right, we're going to find out. I'm not sure which one of these is volume, but here we go. All right. Just a couple odds and ends, first of all. Just so everybody knows, after the talks, there will be a video set up outside in the corner here for anybody who wants to give, a short little talk about a memory of Ken or anything. Separate individual videos for anybody who wants to be asked a question or relate a memory of Ken, and then this live stream of videos will be stored on the same site as any individual videos for people who want to, give some memories. So that's happening. There's a taco bar back there, and there's a gluten-free part of it. I don't know which part, so I want to make sure everybody don't want to get anybody confused on that. And I think that, in terms of other, I don't know if there's any other announcement we need to make. But what I do want to say is that there are people here from all walks of Ken's in my life and all time periods. And I'm sure I'm going to miss some people, and I'm not going to name individuals, but I'd like to name some groups. Obviously, Ken's family is at this table here, his sister Alice. And and my family is a long, truly it's our family, but you know what I mean. Here, this wall, on the other side of the yellow painting that Ken painted, is Ken's very first recovery group, AA recovery group from 1991. They've been together for these 34 years, and they're still together, still meeting, and every time we went back to DC, we would have dinner with them and have a good time. Beyond them is a group of faculty members from the College of Journalism and Mass Communications. And then, in the middle here, we've got our Saturday morning coffee group. They are the reason that we're at this venue, because the Saturday after Ken died, we were all having coffee over there, and my brother was with me, and he said, where are you gonna have Ken's celebration? I said, I have no idea, except for the fact it's got to be light, and it's got to be indoor outdoor, And that's just as we were walking out, and I looked up, and it's like the Star of Bethlehem came early or something. It shone, and it's like, oh, it's got to be this place. This is perfect. And my brother Denny said, yeah, as soon as we saw that, I knew that was going to be it. So that was our coffee group, and then we have a group of friends again along the bar, and in particular, there are two guys there with whom we regularly close down restaurants. So we go out, we eat, we close the restaurant, and they I think want to see us back, but I'm not absolutely certain. You're not real clear about that. Ken's niece and nephew are here, and that's Shelley and Hallie. You're going to get called on anyway, so as well as my niece Julia and my niece Stephanie. And then friends from around Lincoln. Our first neighbors in Lincoln are here. And that was 15 years ago. Our current neighbors are here, and I must say, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it. There's a photo of a sandstone sort of memorial stone out there on the table that we just put there. They decided that they wanted to put our neighbors and HOA decided they wanted to put a memorial to Ken in the garden that he tended all the time. So we picked it out, and then they asked me, what do you want to say? And I worked for like 2 weeks on it, and I just figured, I'll choose a verb here, change a verb. Will I like it in a year? Would Ken like it? I have no idea. So I was really frustrated, and I got really angry one day with me, and I just yelled out, Ken, help me. About 20 minutes later, in popped the phrase, Ken Mason, he made life more beautiful. And that will be in the garden, but it has the multiple meanings that I wanted it to have. And it was obviously what he wanted, because it wasn't the phrase I chose. I wasn't working on that one. So, and it is so wonderful to see all of you here. And so, and our Miami family. There's our Miami family. Yes, thank you. And and he'll be introduced as a speaker, as will our Seattle family when he speaks and talks about Ken. I'm thrilled to see you all here. It's a room of love, and I appreciate it, love it. Ken would be amazed that there are so many people here. He would not understand why you're here. He would want to know who it was for, and he'd want to be here at the party. And he is. Thank you, and he is. And my Aunt Mary said he is. And that is so true. And the more I thought about it, I realized that I think the best thing we all could do is remember why Ken touched us and how Ken touched us. He was loving, he was caring, empathetic. He was the purest soul I know, the kindest person. And to him, acting that way was not acting the way he thought people should act. He was just being Ken. And now it is the way people should act, and he would be surprised that they didn't. But he was just being Ken. And so I have tried to resolve, and I'll ask all of you to do the same. In your lives, give everybody you come into contact with a second chance, another second or two, a little more thought, a little more empathy, a little more consideration. Because when you do that, Ken will be with you, and he'll be with all of us. So that will be his legacy. But the legacy started 45 years ago. We met 45 years ago yesterday on the golf course, which everybody who knows me knows it's ridiculous. But it was on the golf course in which I was doing a 10K race, which makes this all the more improbable. But what you've got to realize, there must be something about karma or kismet or power, because if our timing isn't off by a minute or two, we might not have met that day. But we have been together for almost 45 years from the first day that we spoke. I had seen him around town, DeKalb, Illinois, 2 or 3 weeks before that, and I thought, well, there's someone I want to know. And I was teaching a class at Northern Illinois University in newspaper production. Students had to do everything: write the stories, take the pictures, contract with a printer, and publish a newspaper. And they needed $800 to give to the printer, so they decided to do a charity run in the Sycamore Poetry Festival 10K race, annual race in Sycamore. And the students all pledged, got others to pledge for every kilometer they finished, got some money. So if you guys are all doing it, I'll do it too. Well, I guess I should have, because I met you. But so they did the race. Ken did. I didn't realize Ken was doing the race also. He's a good runner. He finished in the top 10% or so. And one of the pictures out there on the board is a picture of the golf course where we met. And he assumed that the race must be over because the last runners came in 20 minutes ago, and there couldn't be anybody else. So his nephew, Wally, was a spotter in that race, standing in the golf course, telling the runners to, turn here, go this way. And just as I was coming around him, Ken was coming to pick him up and take him home because it had started to snow. And this is 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning on October 25th. It started to snow. Standing at the edge of the golf course, making this motion, and that's right when it turned. I was like, well, he's talking to me. Wouldn't he be? And so I stopped the race and never finished, and Ken was trapped for the next 45 years. Well, that eventually led to us getting married. And it turned out that in November of 2012, the state of Washington added gay marriage to the Constitution. And beyond it, it's Iowa already allowed gay marriage. And so on Christmas Day of 2012, I asked Ken to marry me. And he looked at me. I didn't say anything. And I was like, what? And he said, where? And I said, Iowa. I said, let's wait till spring. It'll be a lovely spring day. We'll drive over. We'll get married. Great dinner. And he said, you think I got my honeymoon in a red off the highway? You're crazy. So I said, okay, what about your friend that you work with at USA, who's become efficient, we could go to Seattle and get married there. He goes, yeah, fine, but where's that? And I said, let's take the Alaska cruise that leaves from Seattle. And great. The thing is, we got to take it first before marriage, because you don't know if it's going to last. So, Chris Fruitridge married us.
Namaste, my friends. For those of you who are not quite familiar with that expression, it's an ancient Hindi greeting which has many, many meanings. From, I honor the place in you where the entire universe dwells, or I bow to the, or I bow to you Or if you're particularly familiar with them, it's just, how's it hanging, Mohammed? Now, there may be a few of you out there who, I can see some faces, a little concerned. Why is this bulbous man from the north telling us about Hindi traditions? I'm going to tell you now. What the hell? There's another meaning of Namaste, which goes, the light in me celebrates the light in you. And if you saw that expression in a phrase book, be accompanied by this picture. It's just astonishing how Ken's light shone so brightly in this world. I am going to venture to say that every single person who is suffering along listening to me at some point felt the warmth of Ken's light on themselves. He was just that kind of a spirit. His light shone everywhere. It shone on that little berm, which is now going to be memorialized. It's shown on every member of his support groups, many of whom are here. And you have to understand how strong, how lovely that light was, that these people actually never met face to face. It was all on a computer screen, and yet nearly a dozen of them have come from all points in the country to remember their friend Ken. His light especially shone on Gary. Every day since Pumpkin Festival, 10K, 45 years ago. It was an extreme honor for me to have married them. And I will tell everybody, including some of my MAGA neighbors, that this was one of the most powerful, most devoted characters I've ever seen, bar none. But you know, Ken also, in addition to emitting this fabulous light, Ken also looked for the light in all of us. And he did it over and over. He saw and felt the love of his family and friends. He supported our aspirations, and he reveled in our success. And I want to give you one clip. We visited Ken and Gary in June, just 2 weeks before Ken passed. And I looked at Ken's montages, collages that he put together after various trips. And I thought about it. I like to try a little creative thing here now and again. And I said, Ken, you know what? That has given me great inspiration. I think maybe I'm going to try to do something to remember this trip on. So we went off on our tour. We went to the Quick Museum, the Art Museum, and I made him take me to the bookstore so I could buy a Nebraska t-shirt. And all the time, Ken would be with us, and then all of a sudden, he was darting off somewhere else. And while he was doing this, he was thinking about Christmas collage. And wouldn't this be a nice thing for his life? Well, the morning we were getting ready to leave, drive up to Omaha and get the plane, I walked up to the breakfast table, and there, laid out like a Chamber of Commerce advertisement, were napkins, brochures, maps, everything that I would need to put one of these things together. So Ken, my friend, I know you're here. I know it. I can't see you, but I know you're here. Anyway, here it is. From that time in June. I'm only sorry I wasn't able to hand it to you in person.
Hold it up.
We'll put it somewhere where you can get at it, or you can pass it around. Or you can go, what the hell was he thinking? Anyway, I guess what I need to say is Ken's light remains with us all. Teresa and I, we love you, my friend. We're going to miss you terribly.
And when we were in Seattle and being married, one of our witnesses at our wedding was this gigantic affair of 6 people. We had Chris and his wife, Teresa, and Teresa and Ken fixed our salmon dinner for that evening. Chris married us. Jennifer Sizemore, who's back there, was one of our witnesses, and her husband was the other. And we were in West Seattle on the balcony at 6 p.m. as the sun shone on the Seattle skyline on a perfectly clear, sunny day in Seattle. So karma again struck. So it was wonderful. All right, my niece Stephanie wants to give us a few thoughts about that.
That'll make you smile. That'll make you smile when you see that.
Yeah.
Well, as Uncle Gary said, I'm Stephanie. And I've had the joy of knowing Ken my whole life. He was the kind of person who saw pink hair and said, add butter. Ken didn't just accept the creativity, he celebrated it. He made sure I knew that being myself was more than okay. It was beautiful. Just like he did for everyone that knew him. To me, he wasn't just family. He was also my creative outlet. What I mean by that is I could be my true, quirky, imaginative self around him. Yeah, he taught me balance in all aspects of life. Whether it was in art, creativity, or just day-to-day thinking and living. He had a way of showing me how to keep things real and grounded, but still full of color. Ken knew and always encouraged me to create, trust my instincts, and follow my instincts. He told me not to worry so much about whether something was perfect, especially in the kitchen. He taught me that cooking didn't have to follow a recipe. It just come from the heart. Try it. See what happens. Enjoy the process. Those were his words. Now baking, that was a different story. You know, there's rules involved in baking. But again, we're going, he showed me a way to bend the rules, add my own twist, make it something special. That was our thing every summer of my childhood, brownies. And even in baking, he taught me balance, knowing when to follow the rules and let creativity guide you. A simple memory, but one that taught me joy, creativity, and love. My husband and I wanted to honor that spirit of creativity and joy, so we made a tribute for him. A collection of 4 memorial frames. Each one tells a little story, and each piece carries something that can spark. The first frame is called Rustic Hearts. It reflects some of the earlier years, showing his creativity and love and started life with Uncle Gary. The second frame is called Mason. It was a collection of Starbucks cards from all the places he visited, along with coat-like squares inspired by his love for the boat museum. It represents his journeys, his passions, and the treasures he shared with people around him. The third frame is called Sorry, Nowhere Gay. It also looks at many expressions of K. And this one comes with a story that still makes me laugh and giggle today. You can see my uncle's had a mailbox. And Ken decided to cover the whole entire house with weird pieces and beautiful crystals hanging down. He would sometimes hit the sun and feel rainbows he loved, and it's just a perfect reflection of who he was. When we came last September to celebrate Uncle Gary's 70th, Ken's 80th birthday, he told us the story. He said, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows we're gay. I cracked up and I still do. It was so perfectly him. Creative, bold, funny, unapologetic, and full of love. Ken and Gary were my godfathers. More of a father figure to me than any dad I had. And through them, I was taught that love is love. The fourth and final frame is Ken. It has some of the newest photos of him showing his brightest smiles and his most genuine joy. This is the Ken who fully embraced himself, let his goofiness shine, and finally found love in the way he always longed for. It represents growth, acceptance, and the happiness he found in his later years. Each of these frames tells a part of Ken's story: the laughter, the love, the creativity, and the heart he shared with everyone lucky enough to know him. They are a celebration of a life that taught us how to go after what we want, to embrace joy, to trust ourselves, and to just try. While my heart feels heavy today, I know Ken would tell me to smile, to remember the good times, to laugh at the silly ones, and keep doing what makes you feel full. Ken's light, humor, and love will always be a part of me, and I know that's true for everyone that had the privilege of knowing him. Thank you.
And now our Miami family, Jose Zamora, who I used to work with at the Knight Foundation, and another colleague who's back at the corner, and you'll hear from his wife later, who is our photographer, the only person Ken was allowed to take his picture professionally. Anyway, we're the Knight Foundation little cohort, and I welcome you.
Thank you, and welcome to the part of the program with an accent. When I first met Gary and began working with him, I had no idea he would give my family and me one of the greatest gifts of our lives. He gave us Ken. Nearly 20 years ago in Miami, this is lovely but really hard. Nearly 20 years ago in Miami, Ken and Gary became our chosen family. Uncles and grandparents, depending on who you ask, to our children, and best friends to my wife, Maria. Ken entered our lives with thoughtfulness, kindness, wisdom, and wit. He showed up as a friend to lean on, an ear to truly listen, a gentle guide, sometimes a dog whisperer. He always was a chef, a pastry chef, an artist, a Christmas tree decorator, a letter to the editor, writer, and an auto enthusiast, as well as a loving uncle to our children. And always, he was a gardener. He always was a gardener, planting, tending, and helping things bloom wherever he lived. In Miami, he cared for the most beautiful orchids I have ever seen. In truth, he did the same thing with us. He nurtured us, he believed in us, and cheered for us to blossom. I love Ken deeply. Our family is profoundly grateful that our paths crossed. Though he's no longer here physically, he's not gone. I can still hear his voice every day, offering advice, making me laugh, explaining how to make jalapeno ice cream, describing the toys he sent to our children and the reasons why he chose them, or breaking down the mechanics and specs of cars, one of our shared passions. Across cultures, ancestors are honored as moral and wise guides. From the Roman Mos Maiorum to the Maya, everybody recognizes their ancestors as these really important moral and wise guides. I am grateful to be here today to honor Ken and to continue carrying forward his values, his humor, his wisdom, and his kindness. Ken was an extraordinarily thoughtful soul. I am glad he's now our wise ancestor, someone whose voice and gentle guidance I can still call upon always. Thank you.
And my cousin, Patty the Cake, who we're going to let her cry as she comes up here, so she doesn't have to cry.
These guys are hard acts to follow. I'm no public speaker, and I don't know why you asked, but thank you.
Because you're sweet.
Well, we all know that Ken was kind and caring, and he was humble and passionate. He was a storyteller, a comedian, and a wonderful cook. He was a quiet leader and a tireless advocate for others. But most importantly, he was a husband, a dog dad, and a friend to all. Last summer, we traveled to Nebraska for vacation. We seriously traveled to Nebraska for vacation, where we met up with the boys for lunch in Omaha. And that lunch turned into an impromptu evening of gadgets, board games, and family fun at our Airbnb. We shared an evening of belly laughs and funny stories, and Ken helped cook that night. And even the 20, 30-somethings in our group, they put down their devices long enough to come play along. But what stood out most to me that evening wasn't the bad jokes or the tales of travel, but I will admit the bad jokes were pretty good. But it was the way the kids lit up when he's talking about Gary and the love and the experiences that they both shared. Through hard work and dedication, good times and trying times, these two shared a love of over 35 years that most of us would be lucky to experience. Last fall, we were at their birthday, and Ken was the king of the kitchen. He taught people how to make pasta, and he shared his sauce recipe, which where we're from, that doesn't happen very often. He was a gracious host, and he made sure that everyone felt welcome and loved. Ken showed that family isn't just who you're born to, but who you choose. So I don't know about you guys, but I feel pretty lucky that he chose all of us. So may Ken's love with his humor, his compassion, and his empathy live on in all of us who are loved.
And now, one of our neighbors, Jared Sylvie, is going to talk to us. But the way Jared got to know Ken was because our dogs got to know each other out in the backyard, and basically our dogs introduced us to Jared. Yeah, 10 dogs.
Great. Hi guys, my name is Jared. I couldn't actually go through the whole process of writing out a full speech. It was a little much, so I just wrote down some talking points and to give you guys some examples of kind of how we viewed him through our lens and how I viewed him. Ken was, I think we all knew him in our personal ways, but he all meant something a little different to everybody. So I just want to give you guys a few examples of how we saw Ken. So one of the first times, well, not first time, so one of the times we really had to, yeah.
Microphone is not on.
It is, you need to talk into the top of it, actually. Yeah.
That's what, yeah. Okay, we're good. Okay, so one of the first moments that really stuck out with Ken in my head was Gary and Ken invited us over, my family, folks, mom and dad and myself, over to their house for, it was just supposed to be hors d'oeuvres, cheese crackers, beverages, and whatnot. So I'll open it up real quick for the audience. we're going through our typical afternoon, 3 o'clock, crackers, cheese, having a great conversation. The conversation's going great. Everyone's having a good time, but we get to the dessert portion. And so Ken started to show some true colors here at this point. You guys know, to the audience, what dessert he was itching to bake, and he did, and you know what he would have brought out. Any guesses? Creme brulee. Of course, there was only one answer. Creme brulee. Okay. So, but in typical Ken fashion, he goes, "Excuse me, I'll be right back." So Gary's sitting out there with us three, we're all conversing still. Ken's gone a couple minutes. He brings out the creme brulee and he goes, "Excuse me again." And he walks off into the kitchen and he comes back, and we're expecting, with the creme brulee, you have to get the top a little bit, you have to heat it a little bit to get the full effect. So we expect a little hand torch coming out for the torch, and no, that's not Ken. Ken comes out with this giant butane blowtorch about 3 feet tall. And like, "Excuse me," just leans over, everybody's creme brulee. Like the joy that he had on his face carrying that blowtorch out. It was second to none. It was like a kid, a 7-year-old having, the best Christmas of their entire life. So that was just a moment that stuck out, like no other with Ken. So the next, it was just Ken and I. It was Ken and myself, one of bulldogs. He's 7 months, English bulldog, 7 months old at the time. Ken and I are out there speaking in the commons by his firm, middle of spring, so squirrels, bunnies are just running around. Rocco's on the shoulder, like 4-foot leash on my arm. I have it wrapped around my wrist. And Rocco, I'm talking with Ken. We're talking about your cars, YouTube, what movie he's going to go see next without Gary, because, whatever was interesting to him at the moment. I'm not paying attention. Rocco sees a squirrel in the comments and decides this is a good time for me to go take off. I'm not paying attention. Rocco, the leash snaps. It breaks in half on my wrist. Rocco goes flying down the common about 40 feet. Ken's bellowing on his hands and knees, about falling over, laughing. He goes, "That's my arm 3 or 4 times. I swear to God, I thought that was your arm that he went running off with." I thought that was your arm. He goes, "I'm so happy it's still there, right?" He's like, "It's still here." And there's Rocco still on my wrist. There's just a little dangling bit of leash. That's all that's left. And so about a week later, I think we come over and I still have that leash and I'm holding it. And I brought, showed you the remnants of it just to prove it. And that's where we had a pretty good conversation on that. So again, true Ken fashion. Just thought it was the funniest damn thing he'd seen all day. So nonetheless, another moment was, we let the dogs out quite a bit in the commons. Again, that's how we came to know Ken and Gary, just through them, through Dot and Dash, through our dogs. But every single time, they still do this. Our 3 dogs, they still go out there into the commons. And when Ken was working on it, working tirelessly on that firm, I didn't know at the time whether I was working, I was just letting them out for a couple minutes, or it was Saturday afternoon, we're letting them out to go do their thing. All of a sudden, the dogs, they would just walk out there. They're not paying attention to me. They always look left for Ken and Gary's house. And then they focus right back, and they just start beelining for the berm. I'm like, "What are we doing?" There's, probably a squirrel up there or something. Nope, sure enough, all of a sudden, like a meerkat, just see this guy in a white beater just pop up, and the dog, he's like, "Oh, my babies, they're right." The dogs all frolic, they jump on him, and, he's like, "I don't have any treats," and it didn't matter. He was the one human that they could interact with where you didn't have to have treats, where they would just go running up to. So Ken and those guys, they had a special bond. So Gary, you mentioned prior, with closing down restaurants, like we've gone out to dinner with you and Ken multiple times, and I can't think of the one time where we haven't closed out a restaurant. It just seemed to be in the nature of Ken and Gary and how they operated, and you just have such great conversation. They're so easy to speak with and to have a fluid flowing conversation about any sort of topic. However, Gary, whenever we were talking outside in the commons or whether we were at dinner, especially if we were out in the commons, if it was just you, me, and Ken, the second the P word got brought up, politics, you'd see Ken go, "Nope, nope, nope," and be like, "This is all you guys." And he would just do a 360 or do a 180 and just turn around and be like, "That's all on you guys. I'm not talking politics." It wasn't that Ken didn't want to hear about it. understandably so. And always gave us a hard time about, going down the political avenue. And so that was just Ken. The last few here were just one of my favorites. And I think this just spoke volumes to Ken. I'd always joke, like, if anything ever happened to me, I was like, my dogs are gonna want to live with Ken and Gary, more than anything. That's where they're going. And so one of the very first times that Ken and Gary had their gate open in their backyard, my boxer, their gate was open in the backyard. The boxer knew it, so she just weaseled her way through the gate, went flying up the steps, and your back patio door is open. The patio is always open. And all of a sudden you hear, what the hell is this? There's a damn boxer in the house. Call animal control. And of course, he was being, he was joking, having a good time. But Ray would always go hunt him down, find him, and he'd have the best time for him. And he would just, snuggle him, love him. There was the whole reason that she was going into that house just to go find him. I was like, that would not happen with 9 out of 10 neighbors in that moment. So where he was welcoming to it, they would just actually go hunt for for Ken in the house, as you call him, the big dog. Yeah. He's the big dog. Yep. And so last two here are just, I think we all know that Ken liked to have a good party, but he also wanted to make sure everybody else had a good party as well. Everyone else was enjoying the scene and situation. So the 4th of July was one thing where Ken really shined. We would have block parties in our cul-de-sac. Ken and Gary were always invited. And of course, Ken could not show up empty-handed. And so he would bring over a wagon full of treats and goodies for little kids. So whether it be chalk, glow-in-the-dark necklaces, squirt guns, of course, for the kids, so the kids could go terrorize each other with their parents, watching on in amazement. Ken was just very thoughtful, very, very grounded, and wanted everybody else to have a good time. So, and so after Ken had passed away, I was talking with you, Mom, and one thing we were just sitting there, we were speaking about Ken, and I'll close it with this. We were just speaking about it. Mom was, Ken was just somebody that you just felt instantly comfortable with. He was just that person that once you spoke with him for a minute, you felt welcomed. You felt warmth. You felt just the true nature of Ken, which I wholeheartly agree with. And she made the perfect quote. We meet a lot of people in life. We forget most of those people, but once you meet Ken, you never forget Ken. So, to Ken. Get distracted.
Yeah. I actually have to look at the list to make sure I don't screw this up. Okay. Yeah.
Holy crap, it's that big guy again. Listen, I promised Ken's sister Alice that I would say a quotation that resonates with her. And basically it's just, grief is only love with nowhere to go. So let's hold that in our heart and remember that it's love, not all grief.
Thank you. And now, Joan Brady, the one photographer who Ken said, she is the only person I know who can make me laugh, relax me, and get the good smile.
I don't know. I saw a ton of photos that made me think maybe I wasn't that special. All right. I am a low talker, so I want to make sure that I don't end up being so quiet that no one can hear me. Am I doing it right? Yeah. Okay. All right. It was about 20 years ago when Gary, who, as he mentioned, a longtime friend and colleague, introduced me to Ken. I was a new photographer and I was just starting to make my way. And Gary asked me if he photographed the two of them with their cat Opus. Gary might tell you that Ken felt a connection with me from that first meeting. He might be very poetic and say something about how the camera created a comfortable space between us, allowing for something deeply personal to be revealed in the experience and the resulting images. But it was something very different for me, actually. It's really rare that I meet someone where the quality of their soul is palpable. And that's what I found in Ken. And based on hearing everyone else speak, it sounds like I was not the only one. Of course, I was drawn to his warmth, to his great sense of humor, and to his gentle smile. That instant connection was mutual. Over the years, Gary and Ken moved around a whole bunch, which meant that there really were only a few dinners, a lunch or two, and the occasional text exchange. But even with the distance, the thread that connected us never frayed. So I have no glass, unfortunately. I missed my prop, but please join me in toasting the life of a truly beautiful soul. For anybody who does have a drink, since I don't have one.
All right, and now, you would think I could remember because I just looked at it, Rick Davis. And Rick is where? Oh, there he is. Rick is, I don't know your exact title, but he's roughly the head of ANCAN, Answer Cancer, the group that Ken found online. And so many of the group are right here in this area, and they have traveled from across the country to, in addition to being in their online groups, they're now meeting each other sometimes for the first time. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. So am I holding the microphone
Yes.
close enough? Everybody can hear me. There's another accent over here, commonly known as the Limey, frequently known as the Limey. Yes, I met Ken through a support group that John Teisberg, who's sitting over here, and myself were involved in many years ago. I think it was around 2013, 2012, 2013 that we first started working with Ken in a cancer group. And he rapidly became a very important part of my life. I honestly don't know who else could have been so, and here's a word that I found this morning, for those of you journalists here, contumelious. Anybody heard that word before? Contumelious? Well, it means insolent and insulting. And to know Ken was to love him. To know Ken was to love him. And he was a real live Rodney Dangerfield. He did not care what he said, to who he said it to, when he said it. He would always tell people openly in these meetings, and sometimes we'd have 20, 30 people. That my big problem was, and he respected me for this, that I had no patience for fools. He loved to tell people that I had no patience for fools. God bless him. Another amusing another amusing aspect of Ken, and I thought I was the only one, and until another one of our ANCANers who's sitting out here, Howard Walensky, compared notes with me after we lost Ken, was that he would send these lengthy, rambling letters as to how we could do things better. And I always thought, oh, he probably showed this to Gary, and Gary just rolled his eyes and said, get on with it, get on with it, you got to do what you got to do. The problem was, whilst they had great intention, they were totally impractical. and he had sort of lost track of the reality. So, I truly love this man. Like I say, I knew him from 2013, met him for the first time, I think it was in 2016 or 17, when he sprawled himself in front of John's contraption in PCRI. And whenever he would come to a meeting, he couldn't leave without telling a joke.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. And it was always a bad joke. I don't know that Ken knew any good jokes, so I thought there is no, yes, long bad jokes, you're right, and we'll be waiting that. So I thought, I cannot stand up at a tribute to Ken and not tell a bad joke. And I am actually quite surprised that no one else has done it before. There was a mention of bad jokes, but no one else has told a bad joke yet. So I'm going to tell one of my favorite bad jokes. It's not very long, but it always, when I think of this, it's not a Ken joke, but when I think of this joke, it does make me think of Ken, only because it starts off, a man walked into a bar. And how many times have you who know Ken heard him start off with a joke? A man walks into a bar. A man walks into a bar, and there's a fella playing the piano. And he's got a monkey dancing along the top of the piano. So this guy goes in, and he goes up to the bar, and he buys a beer, and he walks over to the piano, and he puts his beer on top of the piano. And the monkey walks over, and he pisses in the guy's beer. So the guy looks at the pianist. He says, he says that your monkey, he says, do you know your monkey just pissed in my beer? The guy says, no, but if you hum it, I think I can play it.
And now my niece, Julia.
Ooh, hello, everybody. My name's Julia. I'm one of Ken and Gary's nieces. A little bit nervous. I want to do a good job in honor of Ken, who I think so highly of. I know everyone in this room just thinks the best of him. He was really just a rare bird. Ken was as colorful and silly and playful as he was kind and empathetic. He always made you feel like no matter what you were going through, you were not alone. And, as I think many of us know, Ken was sober for decades, which is a huge accomplishment. But he never made that about him. It was always about helping others, myself included. And when I first got sober, Ken became kind of a mentor to me of sorts. And whenever I'd see him, he'd always take me aside to talk to me or send me a quick text to check in. He just always let me know that I wasn't alone and that he cared and that I had nothing to be ashamed of. And I'll never forget what that meant to me during those early days, especially of recovery. Of course, I wasn't the only person that he was helping, not by a long shot. Ken gave his wholehearted support to so many people all around the country. He never turned away from people. He always turned toward them, I feel. And I think what that makes me think of is this one trip that Ken and Gary took down to Florida. And Ken insisted that the three of us take an improv class at the local improv theater. And Gary and I were like, okay, sure. I don't think it was really up Gary and my alley, but it meant a lot to Ken, so we were happy to oblige. So we go along with him to this improv class, and he just had a blast the entire workshop. He was just got to play, and be the silliest goose. And he just loved every second of it. And I smiled so much that day just watching him. And now standing here today and celebrating Ken, it just reminds me of the oldest rule of improv, which is that when someone hands you a prompt, you never say no or shut it down. You always say yes and. And Ken always said yes and. He said it to life as he beat cancer again and again. And he said it to living every day. And he said it to his beloved husband, Gary, and to his family and his friends, and to cooking delicious meals and eating desserts, especially ice cream, which he and I shared a bond over. And he said it to beautiful flowers and traveling the world with Gary. He said it to so much, but to me, the most important thing is just the everyday people that he said yes to, sharing in joy and suffering, and really just the entire spectrum of the human experience. He didn't turn away from it. And I will be infinitely grateful to Ken for the way that he lived his life, the person that he was, and the fact that he said yes and to me, to all of us here. And, I'll just always celebrate that, and I hope that we all will. So thank you.
And now, one of the partners with whom we shut down restaurants, Brian Samani-Sprunk, who I think he'll probably tell you, but Ken and he first met when he was managing Starbucks. One of them, even before that. He'll correct that.
So before I jump into what I prepared, I think it's important to note that I didn't know Ken's name was Ken for like the first 3 years of my relationship. So you're going to hear about Mason for the next few minutes. And if you're confused, please turn to page 2 of the pamphlet that was provided. There's a little more information there. So as Gary said, my name is Brian, and I have the absolute privilege of being Mason's barista and friend for the past 14 years. Started working at Starbucks in 2011, so we met when I was a barista. The manager came later. Made some moves career-wise, we did it. At Starbucks, we try to create what's known as the third place. This place between work and home where you can be comfortable and just be present. And I see a lot of our customers out here today. And when I was first being trained, one of the most important components of the job was getting to know who our customers were, what they ordered. And my team was thrilled to introduce me to Mason. This would have been at 27th Pine Lake for our Starbucks regulars out there. And each day, Mason would come in, he'd chat up every barista behind the line, he'd order a drink, and take a seat and spend a portion of the day with us. And a pretty significant portion of each day. Always eager to chat with the partners while they were on their breaks. As I got into management, they usually came back late from their breaks, so we needed to scold Mason a few times. Or any of the various people that Mason knew or who saw him out there. One quality that had that the other customers didn't have, that Mason did, was a desire and interest in helping Starbucks become even more successful. Always having ideas, always having ideas that needed to be passed along to the district manager or the CEO. Fun fact, us store managers do not have a direct line to the CEO. But every day he'd have an idea, he'd share an idea, and he certainly built himself a reputation with my district manager at the time. So our relationship continued to grow after I was transferred to and later became the manager of the downtown location, where I was introduced to what I knew as the Sunday Coffee Club. Apparently it's Saturday coffee, some combination, but these lovely individuals that are here today that would come in for coffee, conversation, and homemade breakfast, which also probably wasn't allowed, but Lance had a really good breakfast casserole that I still do not have the recipe for. Anyways, and while I was able to build relationships with each of those individuals, Mason and I's relationship always stood out to me. As a young queer individual, seeing somebody like Mason was aspiring in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so we learned more and more about each other. We became more comfortable. Our true sassy colors began coming out. And conversations now started with a warm "Hey, Bri," as Mason approached the register, and then developed into a slew of always endearing jokes, jabs, "You old curmudgeons," and "You little shits." Eventually, I was introduced to Gary, and my first memory of Gary is his coffee order, tall, blonde, black coffee. And it complimented Mason perfectly. typically ordered something that required too many steps and too many flavors with extra pumps and a few extra trips up to the counter for refills and additional beverages. Thank you, Gary, for the job security. I'm almost positive my first words to Gary were, "It's nice to meet you. I do not know how you put up with Mason all the time." Which was met with a, "Yeah, I don't really know either," and laughs all around. This relationship, this newfound jokes, jabs, you little curmudgeons, you little shits, carried over for the better part of 6 years as I jumped from one store to the next, growing my career. And Mason continued to surprise me with his ability to show up with things that I had to figure out how to respond to, such as gift cards from every city he ever went to, stolen stacks of about 20 or 30 because every barista needed the opportunity to know what a gift card from Washington, D.C. looked like. If you take a look at Mason in the foyer, out there, you'll pick up on what I'm putting down here. But also bracelets, stickers, tattoos, and then eventually scratch off tickets, which as a manager, when you hire 16 to 20-year-olds, is a little bit conflicting. Are you supposed to let them gamble? Are you supposed to walk away? I don't really know. We looked the other way, so it's fine. It's fine. And while Mason had built a reputation as the partner's favorite customer at every location he went to, we've got a few here today. See you back there. It was because he always took an interest in their lives. He always had a piece of advice to share, a gift to give. And one memory that stands out for me specifically revolves around a certain photo, which is also here with us today. And I'm not entirely sure how we got here, but I think it had something to do with my husband and I going to Puerto Vallarta. I'm not sure. But somehow over a period of time, it became important for me to understand that Mason looked really good in a Speedo. So one day, Mason entered the store. He approached the counter like always, but this time with a big grin on his face, and he extended his hand with a photo in it. Now, mind you, in the moment, I didn't know that this was coming, so I took the photo thinking it would be another small gift or a memento from a recent trip, but instead I was met with Mason, just a few years younger, just a few years younger, in a Speedo on a beach, and smirk on his face, not bad. And I said, "Oh, Mason, look at you, not bad at all. What happened?" And so I got that same grin that I always got when I got a job to land, and I earned myself another little shit that day. As time went on and my career progressed, it came time for me to leave our retail stores, and I remember telling Mason that I would no longer be able to make his coffee, which was met with a little bit of disappointment and a pause, but I carried on. You know, Mason, we could be friends. We could spend time together outside of work. Mason agreed. I got a guy's phone number, and away we went. And so I went home and I pitched the idea to my husband, Tyler. "Hey, babe, there's this older gay guy that's been a customer of mine for years. He's kind of a shit, but I really like him. He's got a husband who I think you'd really get along with too, and we're going out to dinner." Tyler, rightfully hesitant, but always willing to trust my random social endeavors, agreed, and thus began the past few years of dinners out, cooking and baking in, cooking classes both with formal instructors, thank you, Gary, and with instructor Mason, a few parties, one trip to the zoo lights, and hours of conversations and laughs. Turned out, Tyler already knew Gary from college, and they quickly bonded over their professional lives, while Mason and I continued our normal approach of storytelling, insult throwing, and calling, all with love, of course. And we had never had a dinner, as you've heard already, that we did not close down a restaurant, a conversation that did not erupt in laughter at least once, or a story to share that went untold. Because of Mason, I learned how to make croissants and creme brulee. Sorry if I'm not jumping the gun on yelling that one out sooner. I knew the answer. And I learned on that same kerosene torch that was ridiculously too big. I now have one, by the way. Gifted by Mason. And most importantly, every evening, every encounter ended with a hug. "Hey, this was so lovely. When should we do this and again?" And of course, "Have a good night." Okay. We had another one of those dinners planned to hear all about Mason's trip to Colorado when we got the news that he had passed. We kept those plans, and although Mason was there to share his story with us, Gary was. We got to hear all about the experience Mason had, exactly what he'd been looking for. We got to see photos of him being surrounded by love, feeling peace, self-love. Mason embodied so many of the reasons why I chose a career at Starbucks. He will forever be my favorite customer. Sorry, Joey, Lance. He will forever be my favorite customer. He was the definition of a true friend, someone who cared so deeply for those who were fortunate enough to know him, who believed within themselves that their lives could be better in big and in small ways. And I know I'll never make a croissant or a creme brulee or lovingly call someone a little shit without thinking of Mason. I'm so grateful that Gary, Tyler, and I have and will continue to carry forward our tradition. Paying tribute to and remembering fondly all the moments we got to share with Mason along the way. So to close, I'd like to raise a glass of Diet Cola, as Mason would always order on our nights out. To Mason, I love you, I miss you. Thank you for everything. You little shit.
Thank you all for being so patient. I'm loving the stories.
We are too.
And now my cousin Steph. Oh, yeah. Who, by the way, designed and published the brochure, what do you call it? The program? Anyway, the printout. Yeah.
I did not write it. Gary wrote it. I just made it look pretty. Okay. Give me a second. I got to put on my glasses. I was really happy when Stephanie put on glasses because she's a lot younger than me, so I don't feel so bad now. All right. Well, I was going to start with welcoming everybody, but we've all been welcomed. But I did want to welcome everybody to celebrate Ken's life, a life well lived, and clearly by the outpouring of all of you, well loved. I am Lisa Schmitz. As Gary said, I'm his cousin. So by love and marriage, I have been Ken's cousin. And yesterday was the anniversary of the day he and Gary met at the 10K Pumpkin Festival run in Sycamore. And for those of you like me, I have to do math. It was 45 years. Couldn't do that in my head. But as you know, I'm a graphic designer, not a mathematician. So you may have known him as Ken or as Mason, but whether he was your husband, your brother-in-law, uncle, cousin, friend, mentor, his life had an impact on you and who you are today. And today we gather to honor him and his memory. When Gary asked if I would say a few words about Ken, I was touched and honored, and I quickly said yes. And then the reality of it hit me, and I thought, oh shit, I've just agreed to talk about one of the most articulate and well-spoken humans ever. How can I do this justice? What can I say about someone so complex, kind, outspoken, funny, and loving in just a few minutes? I worried that no matter what I said, it wouldn't be enough. But then I realized Ken wouldn't look at it that way because he found good in everyone. And I think there might be a few politicians that would be the exception, but we won't go there. I started thinking about what I love about Ken, and one of the first things that came to mind were his letters. Yes, Siri, I know you wrote a few words, but we all know who took control of those annual gems that would show up in our mailboxes that we would anxiously await. So with that, I decided to write Ken a letter. Dear Ken, we will never laugh the same without you. But without you, we would have never had the laughs that your unique sense of humor provided all these years. I only need a few minutes, so I'm not going to reread how Gary so beautifully conveyed your journey, painting a vivid picture of your remarkable life, your accomplishments, and your challenges. But wow, there were things in there I didn't know about you. I'm sorry I didn't, because I would have loved to talk to you about being an accomplished ketoist, or how you fought to be part of the prostate cancer study and treatment group at NIH. I've enjoyed reading the entries on your memorial page. It has to feel good to know how your friends and family recognize you in so many great ways. Words like enthralling, empathetic, caring, warm, funny, exceptional, thoughtful, generous, and compassionate. But I also imagine you got the kick out of some of the more comical comments of being a true curmudgeon, a rascal, a rare bird, a sparkler, shooting off beams of joy, and the constant comments about your bad jokes. But here we are today, each one of us with our own special memories, in our own ways. And yes, it is strange. I've always known you as Ken, and it's weird to not have you. Your love and marriage to Gary is a reminder that a partnership is about showing up every single day with love, patience, and humor. That love you have for Gary extended beyond your marriage, though. You touched so many lives. You gave your love freely. I'm sure your stars and hand brotherhood and are missing your care, concern, and support, along with your terrible jokes and shaggy dog stories. I hope the Christmas letters will continue. Gary's artistic elegance mixed with his own sense of humor. Gary tells me your friends are keeping him close. We will too. I hope you continue to find ways to show us you're still around, whether in the flowers or at the Starbucks around the world, especially those reserved locations. I hope Gary persists with your mutual love of cooking and trying new culinary experiences, but don't accept that he'll tackle making. I think my few minutes are up, and I want to point out something that Julia wrote about you that I love. To be a spreader of light in an increasingly dark world is a precious legacy. So, Ken, I feel I speak for everyone here today when I say I will do my part to continue spreading your light and honoring your legacy.
And now one of the guys who's known Ken for 34 years in their first recovery.
Thank you.
I knew you needed to think about the time to wake people up. So here's the guy who's going to do it.
No, not to. Hello, everyone. My name is Irving, and I'm from Washington, D.C. I almost said alcoholic, but I'm from Washington, D.C. Thank you for wonderful celebration of life for our dear friend, Ken, and all the speakers that came before me. Thank you so much. I'm really glad that the first draft of about 45 minutes to an hour, I'm not going to dwindle that down to a couple of pages. So I won't hold you hostage for that long. And I have to give a shout out to Nancy back there. The conversation that we had prior just shows the type of people that surrounded Harry and Ken. I'm just extremely grateful to hear me. I wrote things down because if I'm not, I'm like one of those speakers who will go 45 minutes to an hour. So hopefully bear with me that you'll get a sense of the Ken that I knew. I met Ken over 30 years ago, to be exact, 34 years ago. And as part of a support group that worked on our, we'll call it spiritual development, but as you all know, we were sober brothers. And I can't go forward without mentioning our group members, which are here. Phil Rockstro, who's living in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Michael Lennon, sitting in the corner, Washington, D.C. And Jeffrey Miller, Arlington, Virginia, but he has houses everywhere, so I'm going to say Arlington. And you know, we grew up to become very close network of brothers as we could possibly get for over 30 years. We managed to stay connected as our lives grew personally and professionally. Ken was the elder of our group and oftentimes treated us as such. But make no mistake, the love we had for one another could not be replicated by any of the other groups that came through the same IOP group that we all went to recovery with.
we shared every bit of our lives with each other, including Ken's battle with cancer and his clinical visits to NIH. Just like any family, we had our moments of disagreements because we all have big personalities. Ken would always build of life wisdom. It's hard to believe it's been over 30 years of friendship, which means each of us are 30 years older now. The loss of losing someone you love is always a challenging part of life. Ken will be truly missed by us all. And Gary, my heart goes out. You'll never understand your pain of your loss. You were always in our prayers, and you have always been a part of it, being married to Ken for all those years. The one thing I will miss most about Ken is how he challenged each of us to be better people, no matter what we're going through. He was relentless at calling us out on our stuff. I should have to say in English, our shit. Always with love, the memories we have created with Ken will be with us for the rest of our lives. I am truly grateful for the friendship we had, all the life lessons we experienced together. Rest in peace, my friend. We love you very much and miss you. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to be here and share with you. I had a lot more, but that, let me tell you, I don't think you want to hear it.
All righty, and just a reminder, these are all archived at kenneth-mason.com. So this is there anyone, it's open mic. Is there anyone who wants to say something? And there is. Okay.
I'm a mister.
Yeah, and yeah, that's okay. This is his online group.
Yes, I am part of that. I'm part of a Zoom call group called the Laughing Man Club that our friend over here, Jet Neisberg, has created, and he also was part of the cancer group that makes I call him Nick. Not because I'm French, but sometimes I have a nose full of snot. Anyway, Mason was a wonderful contributor and participant in our Zoom calls every Monday and Wednesday morning, and we just cherished and missed him greatly. I was fortunate, one of the few fortunate members of that club, who on a couple of trips out to visit our daughter in Arizona, was able to meet and take time with Gary and Mason. And one of the times we got to spend some time on excursion out in the city, and it was just so delightful to see Ken, how excited, like a little child he was. He just was so excited about showing us the ice cream place and the candy, the game store, and all these things. It was just so wonderful because he really embellished a beautiful human being that we all cherish and missed. What else? Let's see. Well, I guess one of the things I'll always remember too is his bad jokes, of course. But he had a special way. He wasn't contentious, but there were times when he would ask questions. Always asking questions. You know, when you start these Zoom calls, we all check in and talk a little bit about where we're at for that day. It's going good, going bad. Sometimes we had medical Mondays. Oh my God, but most of the time we had a lot of different topics that go into depth. We always checked in, and when Ken would check in, sometimes other people were checking in. He'd interrupt them, and he'd always ask questions. But he did it in a very beautiful, concerning way, in a very sensitive way. Because one of the things I loved about Ken, I'm pretty accurate at this, is he was always trying to grow and become something better and something more, and kind of like the plants he always nurtured. I mean, you know, these questions were very deep and probing, but sensitive and caring, because this was a group for men who shared their souls in a very safe and sacred environment, and he was out there 100% in front, and he was beautiful about that. And one of the other things about this group is some of us are part of a group called MKP, Mankind Project. And they have a program that men go through, the New Warrior Training Program. It's pretty intense. And it's very intense for elderly men like myself who went through it, I think, when I was 63. But Ken went through it just a couple of years ago because I think it was part of the indication of who he was as this man who was always growing and learning and wanting to come more and deal with all different aspects of his life. He was such a full human being. And one of these times, or some of these times when he would get probing and that, some people didn't like it, and he would, I don't know if this is true, did he live in the service? Do you know, Gary? So I don't know where he learned that salute, but he would do that in a very kind and generous and gentle way. So we miss him. He's a loving, sensitive, caring human being. And he was a human being, not a jelly bean, a green bean, or a lima bean.
Another accent, I'm Esteban, and I'm from Mexico, so my accent is not that deep. I'm a prostate cancer survivor, and I'm very jealous because personally, and the time that I met him was barely a year in our Mondays and Wednesdays calls. I feel I've met him 10 years. He was very caring of our group. He was the first one to learn to pronounce my name correctly. It's not Esteban, like everybody says, it's Esteban. And he always was very caring. He interrupted as I was giving my check-in and asking questions. And when I received the news that he had passed away, I said, this is a real bad joke. I couldn't. All I remember is that he was planning this trip for a long time, very meticulous, getting doctors to check in. He would go and read. He was very, very careful. And when I received that news from Jed, I said, I don't know that Jed has such a black humor. I just couldn't believe it. And it really affected me. And I'm jealous because most of you met him for a long time and in person. And I wish I had.
Like all those celebrations, we should end with food and drink. So I just want to thank everybody for coming, for being here. The numbers are coming out, of course. No torch. Creme brulee and coconut cream pie. And of course, there is a taco bar. So help yourself. We can stay, we can continue, we can party, we can talk, and we can check in with you if anybody wants to do any brief videos to say anything more about him.
Could I just add one thing?
Please.
Yeah, I think that's loud. I'm Jeffrey, and friends of 34 years, and you all have given just wonderful description of what Ken was like, and I can't really add to that other than the fact that I think I was married for 45 years like you, a Ken-like person. And when these folks leave us, we all go through this. We die simultaneously with our partner. All of us in this room need to look at the person next door as well as is going to be here while we're alive. And so I would say that we've gone through it, and a number of us have already. Right now it's a great time and it's a wonderful thing, but I think we need to commit to stay in touch with you beyond today throughout the years, because we like this, we're losing over 50% of these of our lives, and it's we have to reinvent ourselves around and my heart is out to you. I commit to be there for you for the rest of your years. Whenever we can help in any way, part of our group. We can talk to you about how we have experienced all of this. But I think it's really important to survive that their friends and family stay with us. I've been so fortunate, married into my family out here in Nebraska, center part of the state, who told me things like, just because you've lost money does not mean or family or you are still And that's so much to you. So I hope we can provide you this, because it isn't.
Thank you, Chester. I appreciate all that, and what my closing thought is, as I was retiring, and Ken and I were trying to figure out where to live the rest of our lives, we knew it was going to be a college town, and we started checking a bunch of them out. And I will tell you, we're so delighted we chose Lincoln because the friendship, the love, the support has been fantastic. So thank you, everyone. Please try to have a drink and have a good day.